Aisha Kadebowale. Welcome to another session of Parenting Unplugged, brought to you by Udo Foundation. Udo Foundation is an NGO focused on getting out of school children back into the classroom, especially in conflict-prone areas. You can visit www.udofoundation or our other social media pages at Udo Foundation to know more about the foundation. Our conversation today is titled Our Body, Our Rights, Our Future: The Cost of Girl-Child Marriage in Nigeria. This is not just a collection of words. It defines the devastating losses that occurs every time a girl child is forced into marriage before she is ready. We are here today not just to mourn this reality, but to dissect it, to understand its complexity, and most importantly, to identify actionable solutions. In many Nigerian communities, child marriage remains a stark reality, robbing millions of girls of their health, education, and autonomy. But the cost is never simple. With me today, I'll be bringing three veterans of their sectors. We have a pediatrician, a lawyer, and a psychologist. Let's please welcome our pediatrician. Okay, so while we wait for, or do we have her here already?
She's trying to connect. If you just give her a few seconds.
Okay, let's wait a bit for our pediatrician. I'm guessing we're having network issues. Okay, so while we wait, I would like to ask our participants and speakers to introduce themselves. Okay, so while we wait, I would love for our viewers to drop their questions, any possible questions they have, any experiences you have with regards to this issue. Drop your questions so our speakers can dissect it and give us the answers we need. Good afternoon, doctor.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How you doing?
Please, can you please introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm Dr. Ememobong Idoko. I'm a pediatrician. I work basically with neonatal care with children. I specialize with children from 0 to 18 years. And I take care of their, illnesses, psychological illnesses, both physical and sometimes psychological. I give counsel. So that's basically what I do. I'm based in Abuja. I run my clinic called the Hilem Child Care, where we take care of children, childhood illnesses, children coming to our clinic. I also work as a pediatrician at Deaf Medical Center, where I consult and see patients there. I also do some form of. I did my academic training at Gariki Hospital, where I received my certificate to participate to become a pediatrician. So basically, that's me. I'm married to have my lovely husband and with 4 children, 2 girls, 2 boys, lovely family. So I thank God. I'm also a lover of God. I love God. I love to serve God. Despite my busy schedules, I still find time to serve God. So that's just basically all about me. Seriously.
That's nice, ma. It's a pleasure to have you with us, ma. Thank you for
Thank you.
accepting our call. Okay, ma. We all know this rising trend of child marriage in Nigeria. So we are trying to look at it from a medical point of view, which you'll be helping us
Okay.
with. We also have other speakers that will be coming to give us a point of view from the law aspect, from the psychological aspect. So my first question to you, Ma, is what are the most critical immediate medical risks associated with early pregnancy and childbirth?
Okay. Basically, this early child marriage is becoming, rampant in Nigeria, and sometimes it poses as a medical emergency because children when a child is having to get pregnant and give birth to a child is a big problem because first of all, the child has not even understood her cycle. She has not understood herself as a woman. She has not come to that place where she understands, okay, imagine a child that is 11. It just maybe has not even met seen her period or has not even been able to understand herself. Then she gets pregnant. It poses a lot of medical challenges to her because first of all, she's not very developed to be able to carry a child. Now it's expected that some level of pelvic development should have occurred before a child or before a woman carries a child. But when a child carries, is pregnant for another child, it poses a big risk to her. First of all, pregnancy is a risk, is a high risk state in a woman. Most times when they come to the hospital, those women that are getting pregnant for the first, we have to tell them that this is high risk. Meaning that when they mean by high risk is that meaning that you can actually somewhere, if not care is not being taken, if you two are not careful, you can lose your life. It's an emergency. So it poses a lot because first of all, when they are not developed like that, a lot of those pregnancy changes they don't really understand. First of all. Secondly, when they now come to childbearing, their hip, their cervix, everything is not well developed. They are likely to retain problems like vesico vaginal fistula. Sometimes, because vesico vaginal means it's from the bladder to the pelvis, from the bladder to the vagina. Then you also have rectovaginal fistula from the anus to the vagina. That's because the compression of the baby's head may be too much. You also have what they call obstructed labor. That obstructed labor, meaning that pelvis is not well developed. So the labor becomes obstructed. They can't push. When they can't push through, what happens? And they have stayed there in that state of obstructed labor for a very long time. The bladder begins to, begin to mat together with us, come together with the vagina, and then causing that hole there. If not carefully taken care of course, most of them that go into this child marriage, they are not economically viable. They don't have money. They don't even have the mind to take a decision of their own. For example, when there's a decision of cesarean section for their health to be taken, for for their health to be preserved, sometimes they may not be available. They may not be economical. Let me take somebody signing consent, or the husband may have taken her all around to look for space for her to deliver. And then she comes down with a lot of problems. I talked about vesico vaginal fistula, rectal vaginal fistula, obstructed labor. We're talking about the woman can have postpartum hemorrhage. She can have infections, because this child is small. She can't even care for herself. Talk less of caring for a pregnancy. any little thing that comes away, that because that plays during pregnancy, there's immune system of a woman is low. So when the immune system is low, there's likely to be infections. There's likely to be attraction of infections if she's not well taken care of. So infection setting, sometimes it can lead to her death. So is a big risk for a child, for an underage child, to actually carry pregnancy for another child. Is a big risk.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So before we have other speakers joining in, I'd like to ask you another question. How does early marriage and subsequent childbirth compromise the long-term physical development and overall health of adolescent mothers?
Okay, adolescent mothers, constant, exposure to childbearing. Like I said, it reduces your immunity. The immune system of the woman is reduced. Now, this child is not even developed, has not even eaten well, has not, he doesn't even know what to eat and how to eat. Nutritionally, during pregnancy, the child cannot even make food for herself. First of all, for child marriage, that means she's not economically viable. She has to depend on someone to provide for her, either her parents or her husband, the husband that married her, to provide for her. Sometimes the provision may not just be enough. She may not even know the right food to eat. You understand? She becomes malnourished. Malnourishment is there because of the over bearing circumstance. She cannot even breastfeed the child. Now, breastfeeding too means that she has to eat well to breastfeed. She's lost in thoughts. How will I breastfeed a child? Breastfeeding a child. This child is breastfeeding this child. Has to eat well. Has not been able to. She can't even care for herself because pregnancy comes with a lot of hormonal changes. These hormonal changes affect women. I don't know if you understand. It affects women. When it affects women, it doesn't give you that balance. The woman is not very balanced. She doesn't even know. She's confused. She's in a state of confusion. She's in a state of depression. Her mental state is not just in order. And so because her mental state is not in order, she cannot take informed decisions for herself. Example, cooking the right food. Example, breastfeeding the child appropriately. Example, even knowing that the child, she needs to eat to breastfeed. For example, going for antenatal, going for vaccination for these children. It's a lot. She needs a lot of care and guidance to be able to, pull through that phase of her life. And sometimes I've seen a child marriage. I've seen a girl that she died from malnutrition. She practically died from malnutrition. She had ulcers upon ulcers. She didn't know how to eat, what to eat. She lost appetite. And subsequently, at 5 months post-delivery, that woman died. Now dying, leaving a child behind. A child that, if the mother is not available, who will really care for the child? So exposing the child to a lot of hazards in the community, in life, that if the mother was available, would have been able to protect her from it. So it's a lot. Like it's not. It poses a lot of. Let me refresh your question again, so I can just go back to it.
Okay, so how does early marriage and subsequent childbirth compromise the long-term physical development and overall health of adolescent mothers?
Okay, now she's pregnant this time around, then she's pregnant again. Because they don't really have an informed decision. Some of them, they give birth every year. When a woman begins to give birth every year, her immune system automatically is low. She can't do well. She can't eat well. She has children that she has to feed in different ages. Like this one is 2, this one is 1, this one is 3, this one is 4, this one is 5. She can't really take a lot of where it bogs down to this her childbearing, because something leads to something. What leads to the fact that she keeps having multiple births every year? Because first of all, the younger the child is more fertile than an older person. So every time she comes to meet with her husband, she's likely to get pregnant. She's likely to make it. She doesn't know about contraception. She doesn't know about what prevention. She doesn't know how to calculate her period. She's just a child that needs to be taught. And then she's pregnant again, she doesn't know what to do. Sometimes when they are pregnant again, some of them can go for, different methods. They can want to, abort the children. In the process of abortion, they bring in infections for themselves. They can't eat well. Especially, I really boil down on that malnutrition. That malnutrition is their major problem. And also, constant pregnancy exposes her to her 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 development is slower than somebody who would have grown to a particular age and then start having children. Her development suddenly becomes stunted. She can't really develop as much as mentally, physically. She can't really develop when care, if proper care is not being given to her. She can't develop in terms of milestones as much as her counterparts would have developed.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Ma. That was quite insightful. The issue about girls, because nowadays it feels weird to have children raising children. And we
Yes,
see,
very
because
true.
sometimes we see young girls who can't control their bladder, all of a sudden they smell, they urinate on
Yes.
themselves. And I'll be like, how is there a cure, or is there a way they can treat that? Or once it happens, it's just
Yes.
over for them?
Yes, it can be prevented, first of all. Even when she's a child and she had that, pregnancy, and she had an obstructed labor that may have led to that, most of the time they will tell them stay in the hospital for at least 10 to 14 days. They'll put a catheter there and say this catheter is supposed to be here 10 to 14 days. But being a child now, can decide to take up the catheter. The husband that married her to can decide to say the hospital bill is too much, let's go. When they leave, that vesical vaginal fistula begins to, show forth. When it shows forth, now the child, now she now needs money to repair. It can be repaired. But what about the trauma, the psychological trauma that would have caused this child in terms of being smelling, cannot go to school anymore, cannot even care for herself anymore? Though it can be repaired, what about the cost of repair? Cost of repair becomes a burden on that family. The money they would have used to take care of themselves and take care of their new child, they're not thinking of how to repair a fistula. And if it stays for too long, it becomes a stigma for that girl child. She may not just be herself anymore. Though it can be repaired, then if you don't meet the right doctor or the right specialist to repair, more complications will set in, infections will set in, a lot of other problems will set in. So it's the best way is to prevent it. That's the best. Prevention is better than the cure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma. Now we are joined with our psychologist in the building, Mariam Sulaiman. Please, can you introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mariam Sulaiman. I am a recent first class graduate of psychology at Lagos State University. It's nice connecting with you on this space.
Thank you very much for being with us. So, I would like to ask you some few questions. My first being, from a cognitive and emotional development perspective, how does the abrupt transition from childhood to forced marriage and motherhood derail a girl child sense of self?
Okay, so in development in psychology, we have different stages of development. We have the cognitive development, we have the emotional development, physical development, and so many other developments that contributes to a person's growth overall. And in psychology, we believe that these different stages of development need time for a person to transit through them and become who they are like when they grow up. But then when girls are forced to go from a young age into early marriage, it disrupts their overall growth. So let me say, for example, in Piaget's theory of cognitive development, there are four stages. And the third stage is where children start to learn how to think abstractly, start to understand emotions, etc. It is only in the fourth stage that children can begin to understand what it means to be in relationships, what it means to take up responsibilities. But then when girls are married early, they are married when they are children, and they are married to adults who are trying to transition them from being a girl child
Yeah.
into being an adult. They lose their sense of identity, number one.
Yeah.
There
Very
is
true.
no development of identity. They don't know what it means to be a person outside being a wife and a mother. There's no
Exactly.
sense of there's no sense of individual uniqueness. There's no such thing as, oh, I am Mariam, this is what I can do, and these are the abilities that I have. When you ask them who they are, They just say, "Oh, I am the wife of this," or "I am the mother of this." And then if you say, aside this, who are you?" They really have no idea who they are. So number one, their sense of identity is gone. Number two, there's really they really cannot conceptualize the world and everything around it outside their home and what their marriage is. Because don't forget that because they were transitioned from, let's say somebody that gets married from 9 years old, lived with her parents, and then from nine, she's already the wife of somebody. Her whole life is being molded by other people. She does not have her own personal opinions, does not have her own ideas. All these things are formed by other people. It's people that are determining who she is, what she can do, and what she should think of. When these people are left alone, their development is very shabby, their development is very shaky because they were not transitioned properly. They were not allowed to grow properly. And there's something that is called there's some in Freud's theory of psychosexual development. There is something that is called a fixation, and a fixation happens when, at a certain developmental stage, a child is not allowed to grow properly. So we have the oral stage, we have the anal stage, we have five different stages, right? And then when these children are not allowed to grow properly, they are fixated at a particular stage. So these
Yeah.
people, they have issues in their personality, they have issues in the way they speak, they have issues with the way they form opinions because they've been confined to a certain ideology that was put upon them by other people that didn't really want good for them. So that's why in some cases you will find that even girls that are married they are married into these homes early, do not even fight against girl child marriage. It's because they do not know any other reality aside that. That's why whenever I see people that try to blame these girls, I'm like, I just blaming the victims that don't know anything. They don't know any better. They don't know what it means to live outside this life. So you cannot blame them for not fighting against it. If somebody that is educated or somebody that is grown like me is forced to enter a marriage, of course I have the ability to fight against it because I now have the knowledge. I have my own opinions, I have my own ideas. But you cannot say the same for somebody that was married early into a marriage and was forced to. And the sad part of this is these girls are forced to marry people that are way older than them, people that have
Yeah.
experienced life, people that know the world, people that have the ability to shape and mold them. And this ideology is formed from long form patriarchy, and it's the patriarchy basically, long form patriarchy and misogyny, because there's this idea that if you let a woman bloom, if you let her to grow, then she would supersede you. So it's more of like a catch them young ideology. Before they have the ability to grow, before they have the ability to go beyond us, they let us just catch them and trap them beneath us so that they wouldn't grow beyond us. And that's this ideology is very, very harmful. And it's something that we really, really need to stop. So developmentally, a girl that marries is thwarted off the charts in so many areas. She has fixation, she's stuck at one stage of development without knowing how to transition. It's like you're forcing them to be adults when their mind is still in the state of being a child.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very rich. Thank you very, very, very much. So another question for you, Miriam. What are the most common mental health challenges experienced by young girls trapped in child marriages?
Okay, so I'm going to first start with the very common ones, which are depression, which is depression is one of the most common ones because it gets to a point where most people that are in girl child marriages have nobody to turn to because the parents that gave birth to them are the ones that put them in that situation. So they usually cannot go back home to complain whenever they are facing things. Their husband is more of a soldier in their house. It's not a partner, it's not somebody that they can talk to, just somebody that dishes out orders that they're expected to follow. So they develop anxiety, they develop prolonged sadness, they develop long-term depression. And one thing that they also develop is they develop a lot of stress. So psychologists have found out that mental stress can cause ulcer. And I noticed that Dr. Idoko was mentioning ulcer earlier, that some of these girls get ulcer. This ulcer can also be a form of mental stress. So there were studies that were carried out on dogs that showed that if you go through a lot of mental stress, you can become ulcerated, and these are ulcers that can kill people. So these stresses are long-term stress that are formed on like our mental health. And this kind of stress come from learned helplessness. So learned helplessness is this ideology that nobody else can save you, only God can. And these girls from this ideology, when they've run to people over and over and over again, and they did not get anybody to help them. So they usually get ulcerated and they usually die from these ulcers. Another
Yes.
issue is they usually have all these mental challenges. They can develop psychosis. That's why some of them, after they give birth, they develop postpartum psychosis, they develop postpartum depression, they develop long-term anxiety. Some of them can even have things like schizophrenia, where they start to see things, where they start to hear things because they've been in their head too much. One of the best form of mental health is talk therapy. But don't forget that these girls do not have this privilege. They don't have anybody to talk to. They don't have anybody to listen to them. They don't have anybody to talk about their woes. So they develop these long-term psychological issues that affect them physically. And sometimes they even like transmit these diseases onto their children, because there's some diseases that are going to like they're going to merge with your DNA, and then you transfer them onto your children. And then all of these things are things that they're not visible early. Like psychological issues are issues that come in little by little and little by little, and then one day they just implode. So I think that psychologically, mentally, physically, so many things. Girl child marriage affects these children because at a point where they are just starting to understand the world around them, they're just starting to know what's different from what they're just starting to form their opinions, get ideas, starting to make decisions about what will be good for their lives. They are forced to become mothers. They are forced to become wives. They're forced to become adults at an early age. And most times their mind and their brain cannot really comprehend these drastic changes. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Miriam. From what you said earlier, I got to hear something similar somewhere where the speaker said, if eventually you see a girl child that's married in school, she finds it hard to even comprehend what's being taught in school.
Yes.
Because so like I'm trying to like merge it in with what you were saying earlier. Like how does that come to play?
Yes, it can also affect their learning abilities, because don't forget that if you notice like children that do well in school, it's because from a young age they've been exposed to learning. They've been exposed to different types of things, maybe from TV, from music, by their parents when they're talking to adults. But these girls, that's what I'm saying, that it's the same patriarchal ideology, the same ideology that a girl should not be more than a wife and a mother. So all of these things are not put in their brains when they are young. They are not taught all of these things because they're like, all of these things do not matter when you get married. You don't need all of these things to become a mother. We just need your body. We just need you to be available so that a man can come and take you off. So they're not taught all of these things. And also, there are so many things that can affect learning, such as the environment that you find yourself. Let's say that a girl that from a young age she was put into a marriage by an older person that doesn't listen to her talk, even when she's curious, she does not have the privilege to talk out loud and say, this is what I'm thinking. She is boxed in, she's caged. Let's say that, okay, for example, she was now taken to school. Maybe activists found out about her and they took her to school. It's really hard for us to conceptualize it because it's like you are taking somebody from like the deepest box, from like a cage, and they are putting them into the free world. It's hard for them to conceptualize what they have never thought of before. All of these things are abstract to them. They don't know what it is. So they are seeing new friends, they are hearing probably a new language, they are hearing new concepts that they've never heard before in their life. And then add to that the fact that they are scared because number one, maybe the very first time they ask their husband about something that's related to school, it beats them up, it shuts them up. They are scared to allow all of these ideas to enter into their minds because they're like, okay, if I start to learn, what exactly would happen? So it really takes time for them to start learning all of these concepts because psychologically, there's already a barrier in front of their mind that is blocking them from learning new concepts. And they're always usually caged, they're usually afraid, they're usually anxious. It's like there's a little corner in their mind that they've already secluded themselves into. And it's really going to take a lot to bring them out of of that corner. And the very first thing that we need to do for these girls is to let them to know that they are now in a safe space. You are no longer where you used to be. You are no longer in that kid that used to be. You are now your own person. You have the right to talk about your opinions, your ideas. You have the right to ask questions. Those are the very first things that we need to let a girl to know. Let her come out of her own shell. Let her realize that she's now in a place where she's safe before we now start to put them in an environment where they need to learn in like general groups. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. From what you said now, it's a big factor for this is isolation. They are
Yes.
isolated in every angle, economically, psychologically, physically, and everything. Thank you very much. So another question for you. Can you discuss the psychological mechanisms that might perpetuate this practice across generations? And what specific trauma-informed care models or psychological interventions are necessary to break this cycle?
The heartbreaking thing is that trauma does not end with one person. Like we usually think that, oh, if one person goes through trauma, it ends with them. But then if we look at our parents, our mothers, even those that were not physically abused or sexually abused, there are usually times where so there's something in psychology that is called projection. And this projection is that we we subconsciously try to project our trauma onto others without even knowing that we are doing it. So the very first thing is we need to let these girls to know that that they've gone through traumatic events, and that these traumatic events, and because you realize that there are even some girls that they believe that, oh, that's their way of worshiping God, or that's how God will love them, or they are chosen. Like they found a way to romanticize their trauma and believe that they are living in a good place. So the very first thing that we need to do is to let these girls to understand that this is not life. Because to be honest, some of them think that that's what life is. They don't know better. They don't know that life can be better than this. They don't know that there's something that is called the individual agency. They don't know all of these things. So that's the very first thing that we need to teach them. That life is beyond just being a mother, just beyond just being a wife. That as a girl child, your place in the society is as equal as the place in society as a man. We need to teach them all of these things, and then we now need to teach them how to devoid their minds of this trauma. I'm sure you'd have seen some after we've been protesting about Ochanya's case. I'm sure you'd have seen some posts online where some girls will be like, 20 years old and I don't born for do am if it easy. That's trauma bonding. They have
Yeah.
romanticized that trauma so much that they don't like if they don't see that something that is bad. They see that something that they need to brag about. And then when these people give birth, they transfer the same ideology onto their children. They tell them that as a woman, your joy is being a wife and a mother. If you're not a wife and a mother, you're not worthy of being a woman, you're not worthy of being this thing. So the very first thing is that we need to break that barrier of trauma. We need to let them to know that, girl, this life that you're living, it's not the life is not nice. You were just lied to. You were forced to believe that it's a good life by men, but it is not. It's a very terrible life. And we need to show them this not just from saying it, but from also showing them the lifestyle that they can live without just being a wife and a mother. And then afterwards, we need to show them the bad part of it, the disadvantages of living this life, what it would mean for their children if they continue to tread on this path, and then how they can change it. But remember that every psychological treatment is done with patience, is done with care, is done through stages. You cannot transition one person from the life that they've known all their lives and then just put them into a new one, and then want them to adapt. You need to go through a system of systematic desensitization. That's what we call it in psychology. It's a behavioral technique where we gradually help somebody desensitize from whatever fear, anxiety, or trauma that they have, going through little stages. So let's say, for example, if a girl was beaten, maybe every time she picked up a book to read because she was curious, her husband used to beat her up. We can use a systematic desensitization process where we gradually introduce her to learning back, while showing her that every time you learn does not have to come with beating, does not have to come with abuse, does not have to come with so many trauma that you've already associated with this. So it's a gradual process that we need to learn little by little.
Thank you very much. You know, Mariam, there is this backlash that people get from especially victims of this kind of scenarios, where they come out and say, I'm a victim, and this and that. But like, we are trying to create a safe space for people to come out and voice out their traumas. But these same people we are coming to voice out to are still the ones that would be like projecting so many things on you, making you feel insecure about what you are saying. Like, how do you think we can go about sensitizing people on how to like accommodate people who have this kind of trauma?
I think that the first thing that we need to do as people that are advocates and activists for these girls or people that have gone through traumas is to understand that they don't know better. So let's say, for example, you're advocating for a girl, you're trying to get her out of her home, and she's telling you that no, she loves this life. We need to understand that it's because that's all that she has known. That's the box that she was molded in. She has been lied to, she has been fed over and over that this is the perfect life. So if you try to get out of that life, we're obviously going to face backlash. And that's why I said that again, abrupt changes are not the best. It's a gradual process. You cannot take somebody from one life situation, they don't just dump them in another, and then just like just say that they are going to transition properly. It does not work in that way. It's a gradual process that they have to go through little by little. You have to show them constantly that this is not the kind of life that they are living. Imagine being born in a community where the pride and joy of being a woman is having birth and is giving birth early. And then let's say that maybe the person that they are praising currently gave birth at 10 years old. And everybody's been around and saying, how that girl, she gave birth at 10 years old. She's amazing. She's lucky. Her husband married her at 10. And then in your own ideology too, you're already thinking that, oh, mom, me, I must get married to at 10. If I can't get married at 11, maybe I've already sour or I'm already spoiled to me. All of this that they say. So we need to gradually let them to know that all of these things are negative ideologies, are negative mindsets that are put against the girl child in a way that she would not grow. It's a gradual process. I think as activists, as advocates, it's something that we need to understand that we are obviously going to face backlash from people that do not know better, or we're going to face backlash. So it's something that we need to gradually put into their lives. We need to be very, very patient in the way that we advocate for them. And we need to be very, very patient in the way that we get them to transition from one particular livelihood and from one particular mindset into another.
Okay, thank you very much, Miriam. But what do we say about people? Because it's one thing to bring people out of their shell, but it's another thing for other people to accommodate them. Like you and I now, if we eventually see someone that has that kind of experience, the kind of way we react to them also matters. So what do
Yes.
you say to people? Like, how do we educate people to accommodate this kind of people that have this kind of issues?
So there's this phenomenon called victim blaming and victim shaming, and it goes around. And I've already noticed it doesn't work just for women, but women are the main victims. You also work in general. Like for example, there's this phenomenon that if somebody comes and says, oh, a thief broke into my house, the very first thing some people would ask them is, why did you not lock your door? Like we are automatically siding with the person, with the perpetrator, or automatically siding with the criminal. And the same goes for women that are sexually abused, women that are in girl child marriages. Like you're seeing a 12-year-old carrying a child and you're looking at her with disgust. Who is at fault? Is it the 12-year-old that is pregnant or the person that got her pregnant? I think that we really need to stop this ideology of victim shaming and victim blaming, and we need to be able to realize who the victim is in every case and who the criminal is. Because this is an ideology, especially in Nigeria. Like it's something that we do a lot. For example, we blame the person that is broke for not locking his house. We blame a girl that is raped for wearing short clothes. We blame a 12-year-old girl. Like what agency, what voice does a 12-year-old girl have to speak against a 50-something-year-old man that wants to marry her? But yet she's the one that we blame. She's the one that we insult. She's the one that we treat like an outcast. We really need to stop this idea of victim blaming, and we really need to let people to know that if you're always blaming the victim, if you're always shaming the victim, then that means you are arming the criminal. You are giving excuses to the criminal. If somebody says that she is raped, and then you are immediately saying, what were you wearing? Why were you outside at 10 p.m.? That means you're already excusing the fault of the criminal. You're already saying it's not the fault of the criminal. Now, if you had just stayed in your house, then you would have been raped. It's not the fault of the 50-something-year-old man. Why is she so young? It's because she's young now. Like, all of these ideologies need to stop. We need to stop blaming the victim, because the more we blame the victim, the more we are agreeing that what the criminal is doing is right.
Okay,
That's
thank you
very
very
true.
much, Miriam.
That's very true.
Doctor, I have a question for you, ma. So, doctor, are you with me, ma?
Okay.
Okay, ma. So, like, how prevalent are victims of child marriage? How prevalent do you see them at your hospital? Because I don't want to generalize yet. Like, how prevalent do you have cases like that? I think we're having network issues. Okay, pending the time we can get in touch with Dr. Miriam, from the comment section, we have a question for you. Will some girls not struggle with inferiority complex despite living, oh God, I can't get this question well, and trying to learn? Let's just maneuver it.
Okay, so obviously they would. That's why I said that healing from trauma is a process, is something that they have to go through gradually. They will suffer from inferiority complex, because imagine a girl at 12-year-old that is just trying to learn to read and write, and then she's seeing younger children that can read books easily. She's seeing people that can speak up, that can say, this is what I want and this is what I don't want, at her own age. And she's amazed, she's shocked, like, in what kind of life are these people living? So of course inferiority complex would set in, but this is why they need people that would guide them. They need love, they need care, they need patience, especially they need people that would always be there for them through all of these stages. Inferiority complex would definitely set in, but then again we need to understand that they are humans. They didn't know better, they are just getting transition into this life, and it is something that we have to gradually bring them out of. We have to let them to know that they are their own human being, and their worth is not determined by what other people think of them, but rather how they see themselves.
Thank you very much. Miriam, there's one, I don't know, probably maybe we can just converse about that. What's your thoughts on people trying to use culture as a cover for this whole issue of child marriage? Because what's the difference? A pedophile is a pedophile, but why are we using culture as an excuse to promote such acts?
Okay, so earlier, it was even in the earlier years that people used to use culture. Now they use religion. You know that before, culture did not have God factor. Like, if you saying, oh, in my culture that's normal, does not make sense to people, because what are you saying? Do you mean that just because a few old people in your culture believe that a young girl should be married off, that one now means that you should not marry somebody? Don't you have like any sense of human agency in you? Now they now use the religious factor, because you know religion always comes with God. And whenever we, especially us Africans, whenever we attach God to something like this, it is easier for people to just back down and then just accept it. But we need to be able to see the differences and the nuances of these things. People would always find a way to justify their actions, and now God is the perfect ideology or the perfect excuse to use. Whenever we bring in a God factor, whenever we say, oh, God wants purity, something, something, I think this stems from purity culture. And I would always say the idea that women are pure when they are young, and then when they get older and they start to have sex and start to have children, they're no longer impure. These ideas fuel girl child marriages a lot, because there's just this catch them young mindset that, oh, I need to catch her when she's pure, I need to catch her when she's not tainted. We really need to stop purity culture, and we really need to stop all of these false religious ideologies where we say God is this, and God agrees to this, and God says a woman's kiniko kiniko. The idea that a woman's body cannot be determined by, like, a woman cannot determine what she uses her body for, are all these dangerous aspects of culture. And we also need to know that culture is not something that cannot be fought against. I think some people have the idea that, oh, that's because it's another person's culture, let me talk. If it's an harmful practice and it's an harmful ideology, we are going to stop it. I don't care if just because I am a Yoruba girl and then I see that something's done in Igbo culture and I'm going to be like, oh, is that culture? Let me not talk about it. And this is also a problem that Nigeria has because we are like, that's their own culture. As long as it's not my own culture, as long as it's not my own child, as long as it's not my own family, it's not really my business. But we need to remember that once something is accepted at a small level, gradually by gradually it will go to a larger level. So whether it is culture, whether it is religion, we need to be able to see patriarchy, misogyny, and negative mindsets that can hurt people. As long as it's something that is hurtful, whether or not they put culture on it, it is still a very, very foolish ideology that should not be backed up by anybody.
Okay, Miriam, you now have a background in sociology. There's a term we use, ethnocentrism. So the
Mm.
thing is that I believe that what most people think is that why should you think because fine in some cultures we don't do child marriage, but why should you think that okay, my culture is better than that? See, this is an issue that we have on ground because when we talk about harmful social cultural practices, they try to start saying you're ethnocentric, you're xenocentric. Like I don't know,
Yes,
probably they're just trying to like gaslight people into believing that you're trying
it
to
is.
downplay their
It is
culture.
gaslighting and manipulation because ethnocentrism comes from you thinking your culture is superior because of normal practice. Let's say, for example, in Igbo land, let's say because of the food that they eat, maybe you don't like their own kind of food, and you're like, my own culture is better than that. That's ethnocentrism because you feel like your culture is perfect because you believe that your own ideology and your own way of life is better. But then when it comes to harmful cultural practices, that's not ethnocentrism. If anybody says that person is trying to gaslight and manipulate you into not talking out loud. That's a lie. That's not ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism is thinking that your own culture is superior because you believe that your own ideas are better. But then when it comes to harmful cultural practices, you're fighting against what is wrong, not what you believe is wrong, but what is wrong on a general level because it's harmful to some people. Ethnocentrism, or if anybody tells you that it is, they're trying to gaslight you and manipulate you into not talking about their culture, and that's very, very wrong.
Thank you very much. You know, in some issues now, we don't have child marriages, but we have this age gap. Probably a 40 years old man with an 18 years old girl. Like, what's your thought on grooming?
Yeah. Oh my God, grooming is such a very terrible ideology. Is the ideology that before a girl goes into the world and before she has like her own ideas and opinions, we should quickly trap her. And I think it comes from men inferiority. Men would go above them and transcend beyond them in terms of like finances, in terms of education, knowledge, that they're like, before you go beyond me, I'm going to trap you first. Now, you see some men that they will tell you that even if their wife is ever going to go to university, they're going to make sure that she gives birth first. That's a grooming ideology. Or they are going to say that if you want a submissive woman, you have to catch her young. So there's this ideology that if you don't want a woman to know what it means to chop life or what you know what it means to enjoy life, you start dating at 17. You start giving her like maybe 5,000 naira. But then if you go and marry a woman at 30 years old, a woman that's already spending millions, I know what it means. You don't want to bring your own 5,000 naira and this is what you have. She obviously know what is beyond that. So these men, it's the ideology that before they know what life, before they know how to enjoy life, let us quickly trap them and then give them what we can, so that they only believe that we are the sole providers. Not the ideology. You want a girl to believe that without you, she cannot exist on her own. So they get married to them early. Me personally, to be honest, I believe that the age of marriage should be increased to at least 20 years. At least 20 years. An 18-year-old is not ready for marriage in all ramifications alone. Having to cater for a whole home, having to deal with in-law, having to deal with adulthood is different. Like a whole lot of stress on its own. Talk less of not being a mother. I even think that we should even push for the age of marriage or age of consent to be 20 years old. Not 18-year-old is ready for marriage. And these men, they know it. It's just that men, they like to pretend trying to build a mountain out of a molehill. Like, this is just a small issue. Why are you stressing about it? But in reality, they know what they are doing. I've spoken with men. I've spoken with a guy that was telling a friend of mine that is a guy that instead of you to date a 17-year-old, so that by the time she's 20, she does not know any other enjoyment aside what you have given her. So even if you give her 200, she sees that something that is big. If you give her a little bit of love, she sees that something that is large. But then you cannot date a 25-year-old woman that's gone to university, has seen of financial care, and then you now say that, oh, she's going to just accept you as a savior and a protector. So these men, their grooming ideology is that when we catch them young, when we catch them when they don't have an idea of what life is, of how far life can go, then we can mold them into what we want. It's an idea of molding people. So you are molding a submissive woman, a woman that does not speak up, a woman that if you give her 5,000 ideologies that they want to mold into these women, so that they would always see them as the protector. There was this man that was saying online one time that because he has a BSc degree, his wife can only get an ND or an HND.
Wow.
That she must not get she must not get a PhD, because when she starts to get those then it means that she's more than him. Then it means that she's higher than him. Then it means that she's better than him. So that's to say herself as that once a woman is doing better than you, then your position as a husband is threatened. And that's why they always make sure that woman is beneath them. It's a very, very, very harmful ideology.
Thank you very much, Miriam. Doctor, so back to you.
Yeah, please back to me, please, before my net.
So, but before I go back to my earlier question, there's one question I want to ask you. What appropriate age do you think a lady is physiologically capable to give birth?
Physiologically capable, maybe from 20 years.
Okay.
20
So,
years.
is it that the risks are reduced?
The risk are reduced, yeah. The risk are reduced because by then you expect that her pelvis would have been properly formed. Most of her bone, would have been fully developed. At 18, most of the bone, epiphyses, diaphyses, they are all fused and they are all formed. So you don't really expect much increased bone development at that time. You understand? So at that time, she can be able to give birth because by then all her body parts are already formed. They're already ready to receive another human. It's not like people at 20 will not have obstructed labor. They can have obstructed labor that might lead to vesico-vaginal fistula. But the risk is reduced compared to a 12-year-old or an 11-year-old or a 15-year-old giving birth. So now, of course, these days, because of the rapid, what we eat and all that, so children even at 15, you see the child very big at 15, very big at 11. But that doesn't mean that she has fully gained her full maturity of her bones. She's still growing. She's still a growing child. But as at 20, a woman should have HGs at that age. You may likely not increase it. You understand? So most likely at that age is good.
Okay, so the question I asked you earlier, thank you very much for that, was like how prevalent are cases of victims of child marriage reported to the hospital? I don't want a general overview, like because it's something as you might be seeing on a daily basis. Like how prevalent?
Well, because of where I practice, it's not really seen, but of course that there are a lot of reported cases in the northern Nigeria. But where I practice in Abuja, where there is everybody's here from the south, from the north, from the middle belt, everybody's here. So those cases are not that common. They are not that common. But I'm sure it's because of the locality, because of the urbanization of this place. But if you go to other rural areas, Kono, Zamfara, Sokoto, Kano, you begin to see all those cases being reported. It's not very common in this because I'm in the middle belt. It's not very common here.
Okay. So, ma'am, what is
one case of child marriage? And that was not even in the hospital, it was in church. She was very young. She got pregnant, married, and she died after 5 months because of out of malnutrition, and improper care.
So this just tells us that the areas also matter, because I think I've come to believe that child marriage
Yes.
is prevalent in poverty-stricken areas.
Yes. Poverty, not. I think it's apart from poverty-stricken areas, religious. It depends on the particular religion that buys into it. Like the South now, you may not really see plenty of child marriage. What you may see is that you may see other forms of abuse, like maybe go and do house help, go and do,
Child labor.
child labor more than child marriage. But of course, in the North, it's popular because it's because of their ideology. Like she said, I love what she said alone. And then that, because the mother was a child, so when she passes through that, she's not exposed, she tends to transfer the same thing to her child. And so as a result of that, that continues to linger. Even when all the things government are trying to do to stop it, individuals have talked. If the mother tells you that, if your mother, because your mother is your first mentor, tells you that you should marry as a child, no matter what you hear from outside, is what you pick from the home. Charity begins at home. That you will be able to. So that's why it's lingering. That's why it keeps lingering. And then a lot of peer pressure from the parents. A mother wants to execute her frustration upon a child, for my child. Even if the child is 17, 18, has not finished, the man will train you out of her poverty, out of her lack, out of what she didn't gain from the husband. She wants to gain from the son-in-law. Pride and greed and frustration leads them to make such decisions.
Thank you very much, man. Thank you very much. That was quite insightful. I have a question for both of you, but I want doctors to go first because I wouldn't want to lose because of your network. So, what is one single point to support the protection of the girl child and the end of harmful practices?
Okay, a call to action is what the families, because it starts from the families. If we see, as much as because now the rate of education is high, that's the rate of exposure education is high. So if we come across, or if we see where those cases are prevalent, we should be able to child education, be able to give the girl child education. Education is freedom. When she's educated, she begins to know her rights, and she becomes free from every form of abuse or any form of decision that somebody is trying to impose on her. So education is one thing. Number two, we can involve government agencies. I think we should have some child rights acts in Nigeria. It should be child rights acts. We should, government should, agencies in government, these women and development centers, they should be able to implement those kind of acts to ensure that the child is protected till a particular time. What I mean is that when they come to you, when cases are reported to those agencies, it shouldn't be, it's happening now, they should take it. So then, of course, in our mosque and in our churches, it should also be in a way, not like you're going to come out and you can just give a scenario and then people should begin to pick information from there. Where people gather, especially in the schools, education is very key. Education is key. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma. So before we close up, I would like to go to Miriam. Miriam, so what's your opinion on that? Give us one concrete one.
Okay, so I really agree with Doctor, and I think that to stop this ideology, we have to start from the family, and especially individually, because what their family and culture thinks true, what their religion says. And I think that at religious institutions, Nigeria is a highly religious society, but we have failed in the fact that we shy away from these topics. We don't face them head on. Like, for example, I am Muslim, so I know what these two religions say regarding girl child marriages. But because whenever people come outside to use religion as an excuse, we don't have prominent religious scholars that go against this and say, this is a lie. You're only saying this to justify your action. We say that these practices happen more often in the north, but then research and studies have shown that it is more of a cultural thing rather than a religious thing. But then if you have
Yes.
the average northern Nigerian, that why did you marry this person and the person is Muslim, they will cite Islam. So I think that as a religion, I'm saying stop lying against the religion, because people would always use the God factor to cover their eyes and say, oh, it's because God allows it, even when they know that it is harmful, because they know the repercussions of these things. And then that because we're a highly religious society, whenever we hear God, we just pull back. And then another thing is we need to teach our parents, our siblings, teachers, uncle, the advocacy for the girl child, advocate for ourselves. You need to teach both the boy child, you need to teach both the male child and then other people around them. Because most times you always tell the girl, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. But then again, the girl is not the perpetrator, she's the victim. We need to stop teaching the victim how to run, rather we need to stop the perpetrators.
Yes.
And then all of this ideology, we look at the big picture, but we don't look at the small factors that contribute to this thing. For example, the idea that you be telling a 5-year-old girl that don't you know that you're already grown, go and wash your kinikon, go and wash your plate, go and do this. You're a woman. You need to just take care of a house. Our brother is there, our brother is listening. You're already putting it into our mind and the mind of our siblings that because she's a girl, she has already attained the level of maturity and other people, and she needs to start bearing responsibility to be a wife and a mother, even when she's still a child. So I think that we really need to also educate our parents. We need to let them to know. And we need to be very, very frank with them. Last week, when the case of Oceania happened and people were advocating for it, I told my 12-year-old brother, I told him that if you ever call myself, I would follow you. And I was saying it in front of my mother. My mother was there. I was saying it that I would make sure that you are persecuted for this. Of course, I know that my brother is not that kind of person, but we also need them to know the repercussions of these things. That it's not always the girl that will be telling you not to do this, not to do that. If you, a boy, has their own individual rights, then you would also be punished for it. So we need to start individually. We need to forget that even before the government, even if the government puts down a lot of legislations, a lot of policies, if as human beings we cannot embody these principles into our daily lives and say this is what we want, these are the changes that we want, it's not going to happen. And it really starts from us debunking all of these false cultural and religious practices first of all, then also the family, before we now go on say larger state of saying, oh, as the government needs to influence policies and so on and so forth. Because even if the government influences policies and if people are not ready to put in their policies into their lives, it's not going to happen.
Yes, I totally agree.
Thank you very much.
I totally agree. Seriously.
Thank you very much.
Totally agree.
So before we go, there is a comment I would like to read. Girl, from at Football Magic. Girl child education should not be limited to the child only.
Yeah.
The parents, the community, and male child need to understand the effect of early marriage on the overall growth of the child. Like this embodies all we have been saying since the beginning of this session.
Yeah.
Like we would have loved to have someone from the legal perspective, but we can't have that right now. But I would like for everyone to subscribe to our YouTube channel, because our next session we're going to be having the legal perspective on here, because I have a social work background, and one thing I know about this whole act is we have the issues of multiple child rights acts, because what is governing them in Lagos is not what is governing them in Kano. So, like, how do we now bring this whole thing if the law is being biased in something that is a universal issue? So, we are going to be having a lawyer who is going to be dissecting this particular topic with us in our next session. I would like to thank Miriam and our doctor. Like, I really, really appreciate you You have been very insightful. I even learned quite a lot today also. And doctor, I like the way when you told us that, particularly on your end, you have not seen a case like that because it's not prevalent where you are. It shows that because sometimes we need to also be honest with our findings, because it's one thing to be going about shouting end child marriage, end child marriage. We need to like be factual with our points. We need to see. I know that in some areas, I know when the doctor said it's more prevalent in the north, but it still happens in the south.
Yes, it does.
Because we have the issues of child labor, we have the issues of pedophiles walking freely in our society.
Yes.
Because the prevalence of rape it's quite alarming. It's quite alarming. So I guess the issue of sensitizing our boys, like you said, our men, our parents, it's of great importance. Like, thank you very much. You guys covered everything we have to say about it, and we really, really appreciate you. On behalf of the Foundation, thank you very much. Thank you. So now, our audience, what role do you play to stop child marriage? Please, you guys can give us your response in our social media. You can go on Twitter, post end child marriage. A girl needs a pen, not ejaculation. We have so many quotes. You guys should go and don't. See you next time.
Bye.